Hey everyone, welcome back to Cloud Architecture Interview Questions and Answers on Scenarios. I'm Arjun, and as always, I'm joined by Neha. Today, we're diving into something that honestly every cloud team faces sooner or later. How do you keep AWS EC2 costs under control, especially in dev environments?
Hi, folks. Yeah, this is one of those topics that sounds simple, but it can get out of hand really fast. I mean, Arjun, remember that story from a startup in Bangalore? They let their devs launch any EC2 instance type, and suddenly their monthly bill was like triple what they expected.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of us have seen that. Someone spins up a few M5.4x large instances for testing, forgets about them, and then boom, the finance team is calling. It's not just about the money either. It can mess with forecasting, and honestly, it just creates chaos.
Exactly, and it's not always intentional, right? Sometimes devs just pick the default or the biggest instance because, well, why not? But if you don't put some guardrails in place, it can really hurt the business. Have you seen any other impacts from unchecked resource usage?
Yeah, besides the obvious cost, I've seen teams get into trouble with resource sprawl. Like, suddenly you have all these random instances and no one knows who owns what. It makes security and cleanup a nightmare. And, you know, as we discussed in our last episode about S3 deletion alerts, automation and transparency are key. Same principle applies here.
So, the most effective way I've found is using IAM policies with conditional access. Basically, you create a policy that only allows launching EC2 instances if the type matches T2. That means devs can use T2.micro, T2.small, whatever, but if they try to launch, say, a C5.large, it's denied.
Right. And the magic happens with the string-like condition in the policy. You set EC2 instance type to string-like T2. It's actually pretty elegant. I always forget the exact syntax, but it's something like that, right?
Yeah, that's it. And you attach that policy to the user or group. For my team, this was a game changer. We went from people accidentally launching expensive instances to everyone sticking to the free tier or budget-friendly types. It was a relief for both engineering and finance.
But here's a question, Neha. How granular do you go? Like, do you ever make exceptions for certain teams? Or is it just one policy for everyone?
Good question. I think it depends. For dev environments, I keep it strict, T2, only. But for staging or special projects, maybe you allow a few more types. The key is to review with the team and adjust as needed. You don't want to block productivity, but you also can't have a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's a balance. And honestly, sometimes you have to revisit these policies as your team grows or your workloads change. It's not set and forget. So, once you've got the policy in place, you gotta test it. I remember this one time. A developer on my team tried to launch a non-T2 instance and got denied. At first, we thought AWS was just being weird, but then we used the STS Decode Authorization Message tool. It showed exactly which policy was blocking the action. Super helpful for troubleshooting.
Yeah, that tool is underrated. If you ever get those cryptic, not authorized errors, just decode the message and you'll see which policy is at play. It saved me so much time. Actually, I had a similar case where a policy was misconfigured and the decode tool pointed me right to the problem.
How often do you think teams should audit their IAM cost controls? I mean, it's easy to set it up and then forget about it, but things change so fast in the cloud.
Honestly, I'd say at least every quarter. Or whenever you onboard new projects or teams. Policies can drift, and sometimes people need new permissions. Regular audits keep you ahead of surprises.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Smart IAM policies really are the backbone of good cloud governance. And like we said last time with S3 alerts, automation plus regular review is the way to go.
All right, I think that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you found this helpful, stick around. We've got more practical cloud scenarios coming up in future episodes.
Thanks, Neha. Always great chatting with you. And thanks to all our listeners. See you next time.
Bye, Arjun. Bye, everyone.